Okay, here we are again. One day later than normal, but here we are again. We're also enjoying our solitude of the most recent days being in Brisbane. And what do? You just keep on. I think we've become masters of just working from home and picking up where we left off and doing what we do wherever we can. So certainly versatile, which is good. So I'm Jacqui Lewis. I'm the clinical nutritionist for BN Multi, and each week we meet here on the page and we talk about all things bariatric. So this week's topic is about making healthy food choices when things aren't quite routine. So when you're eating out or when you're traveling or if you're on a long car trip or those kind of things. And we've also the poll this week in the group was about meal planning and how much people enjoy that or don't enjoy that. So we'll just talk about kind of roughly, what drives our food choices and how to be prepared for times where we think maybe things can go badly if we're not prepared or organised, or we just don't know what are the best choices out of different foods that are on offer when we're outside of our own, when the food is out of our control, I suppose, and our own resources are not available. So welcome, and the first thing we'll do is I'll go through the poll. So I will share my screen with you. I will share this screen. So you can see this week we took a poll on eating plans. Which statement rings true for you? 79 people said, I like the structure of a meal plan to keep me on track. 36 said they don't follow a meeting plan, an eating plan at all. 34 said, I look on the internet and social media for tips on healthy eating. 23 votes said, I started out well following an eating plan, but rarely stick to it nowadays. 15 people said they have worked out an eating plan that suits me and has worked for me, which is great. 13 votes said, I come out with a meal at each meal, but stick to a few basics. Mostly it's easier. Okay, so maybe eating a narrow kind of diet because we know those meals and we know how to prepare them. 12 votes, I pretty much eat on the run. 7 votes, I stick strictly to the eating plan my dietitian laid out for me post-surgery. 79 said they liked the structure of it, and 7 votes said they did it. I wonder what that means. So overall, we look at the idea of a plan. I don't necessarily rebuke. I think we all need structure and an idea of what a meal looks like. So for me, an eating plan might be your bariatric portion plate and bowl, because that means that each of the meals that you prepare are almost on a plan, because then once you've cooked the food, you lay it out on the bariatric portion plate and you know that what you're doing is the correct weight, serving size, and in the right distribution of the macros, I suppose, so protein, carbohydrates, healthy fats, those sorts of things. That to me would equate to just about following an eating plan. It depends on what you need, and it depends on your personality, I suppose, as well, and also your goals. So I think in the initial stages, when we're all trying to work out how to get 60 to 80 grams or even more of protein into this tiny little pouch that may or may not love having food put in it just yet, that's when we need a plan. And we need some suggestions as to how we can manage our new tummy and the way that it works. And, it's a very much the early stages after surgery are quite trial and error. So that's a great time to have those things in place so you know that you're meeting your needs. And that is something that you need to do for life, I imagine. Well, I don't even imagine, I know you do. And I would like to highlight that even if you haven't had bariatric surgery, these considerations are something that should be part of your everyday plan as well. So it's not just that bariatric surgery dictates that you need a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of carbs, and a certain amount of healthy fats. That's just looking after your meals and making sure you're meeting your nutritional needs. That's not just exclusive to bariatric patients or those who are looking to lose weight. That's a way of healthy living and longevity and, making sure you're avoiding disease. It's not necessarily something that we're making up for bariatric patients only. And I think that's something I wanted to voice, just mainly because I hear a lot of people going, oh, why me? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to look at everything and every meal and how much is in it? But really, this is a lifestyle, and I do that every day. I look at my meal and I go, okay, I need at least 20 grams of protein, which I know is about 100 grams of meat. So generally I'll look for 100 grams of meat and, a cup and a half of veggies or whatever. And that's just how people stay well and how people manage their weight, is that they're looking and they're conscious. And they're observing what they're eating. They're not necessarily, and they'll have times where, so the 80-20 rule comes in. But yeah, I think if you're looking at your lifestyle after bariatric surgery as just, you have to look after yourself now and you have to look at your protein and your carbs and that sort of stuff just because you've had surgery, it applies to anyone who's managing their health. So don't feel lonely. We all have to do it. It just could be that it's something that you haven't done in the past. So it does feel, new and different, and it's something to get a handle on, I suppose. So as much as we talk about a plan, some of the practitioners that you see will actually give you, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Here are 3 to 5 suggestions for breakfast, or the same breakfast. Here are some suggestions for lunch. Here is your dinner. Pick from 3 of these meals and just repeat them over and over, so you know that you're getting your macros in. Others will give you a range to work in. So it's like each meal aim for 25 to 30 grams of protein, aim for, say, I'm not saying this is what you should be doing, but I'm saying it could be, an idea is 50 grams of carbohydrates. And that's not just 50 grams on the plate. That could be 2 cups of veggies that then give you 50 grams of carbohydrates. So we also need to know the breakdown of each food. So rough guide is that 100 grams of meat or chicken and generally fish will give you about 20 to 25 grams of protein generally. So that's something to look at, is that generally you'd be 20 to 25 grams of protein at a time, and you'll meet that with 100 grams of animal of some sort. So looking at how much we like the structure of a meal plan on the poll, 79 votes, then 7 people said they stuck strictly to the meal plan. I wonder if there's anyone can put their hand up and say how they plan their meals. Do they make their own meal plans? The other thing, if you do like a meal plan, don't miss out on the BN multi-meal planner. It's on the website. It's about $14.95 from memory. And it's a big magnet that you stick on the fridge. And each week you plan out your meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and your snacks. And then on the side of that, there's a shopping list that has lots of protein snack suggestions. So then you can, from your recipe books or wherever you're getting your meal ideas from, write down everything you need, plan out all your meals for the week, go shopping, come back, and you're set. And that would be a meal plan. So it is something that food now we do need to plan ahead for. And I'll go into that when we're talking about eating on the go. So this week's blog on the e-newsletter, if you're not getting that, you can subscribe on the homepage of our website. This week we've covered what to do, how to prepare for leaving the house, basically, so that you can stick to your plan. If you are looking at consuming a relatively high protein diet with low glycemic index, carbohydrates involved, you'll likely need to take food with you wherever you go, because you will notice that once you leave the house and you're at a cafe or a restaurant, or you're at work, or you're visiting someone in a hospital, or whatever it is, you'll notice that carbohydrates are abundant and really easy to get your hands on if that's what you want. And good forms of protein are relatively hard to find unless you sit down at a restaurant and buy, a meal. So always have something with you. If you're going out to, say, an evening if you're going out for an evening movie and you don't want to snack while you're there, make sure you've had your dinner before you go. And also on that, I think a lot of people have these associations that the movies go with food, and they actually don't have to. We've practiced that in our family. We eat, then we go out and we see a movie, but we don't buy anything to snack on while we're there. It's just we're there to watch the movie. That's our job. And we eat either somewhere healthy before we go. We can go out, but we don't necessarily buy all the lollies and the popcorn and all that sort of stuff and say that then equates to a trip to the movies. And I think we're very much set up with these ideas, and obviously the movie owner likes it. The people who own the movie theaters love it if you're associating snacks and drinks, because they charge the earth for them there as well. But yeah, you need to have a look at what you're associating these different events with as well, and that they don't always have to be linked to eating food. So be prepared. Don't go anywhere hungry is my tip. Is always have a good, solid, balanced meal before you leave. If you're going, out for something that normally would speak to snacking and that sort of thing. Also, if you're traveling, there's some really good tips in the blog this week about how to choose like a hotel that might help you to eat better, or how to manage your food and your needs in advance if you are traveling. So don't miss that. The newsletter comes out on Wednesday, and we've come up with a whole lot of solutions to all of these different situations where you might find that you can't get what you need as far as food goes. In your bag or in your car or wherever you can stash nuts, seeds, protein balls, things that aren't going to go off in the car, but things that will travel with you that are also will sustain you if you get stuck somewhere. If you go out and something goes for a bit longer than you thought it might, and then you're starving, you're going to make bad choices in that time where you're, racing off home or whatever. But if you've got something in the car, that'll just tide you over until you get home and you can prepare your meal. Or if you know that you're going to be out for hours, always take your food with you. Also on our site is a massive range of different lunch boxes and food transport devices that make all of this really easy, keep your food fresh for you, and make actually traveling around food quite enjoyable. There's some really good technologies now in, I remember when we were at school and we just got a lunchbox and it wasn't insulated and it didn't have, sections in it to keep things from touching each other. And we just ate it because it was food. But now we can have hot food if we want it, and we can have hot food 6 hours later, or we can have really nice. And it does make a massive difference when you open your lunchbox and whatever in it is still cool. The meal's more enjoyable, and you're more likely to continue to prepare food that way if you can make it enjoyable as well. So this week is looking at avoiding eating on the run. 12 people said they eat pretty much on the run. I wonder how that's working out. If you're doing that, you might find there's one local cafe that you go to that can provide you with, pretty standard protein and veggies kind of meals. If I'm out, I'll look for Asian kind of places with like Vietnamese or Thai. They usually have a good range of stir fries and stuff like that, you will get the sauces and stuff that go with it. But overall, if you ask them to go easy on, you know, fats and sugars in the sauces and that sort of thing, you can actually come up with something quite healthy. Generally, those are the go-tos, the Asian restaurants and that sort of thing, or the pho, you know, the noodle-based soups. You can just not eat the rice noodles if you don't want them, or ask for your pho soup to come without that. So you generally end up with veggies in a beautiful broth and some meat. So it's looking at different options for that as well. Yeah, so eating out need not be dull and boring, but if you are prepared and you know where you're going, you can have a look at some good options. I generally avoid gluten and dairy, so when we're going out, I'll have a look at the menu beforehand. I never used to do that, to see what's on offer, and then to see what I might need to ask for if I'm there and, you know, everything's got something in it that I'm not having. And don't be shy to ask if they're preparing something in a way that nearly fits the bill. Just maybe ask them to just do that second little thing for you that makes the meal, you know, up to how you want it. You're paying for it in the end. So stick with us this week and we'll continue to talk about eating on the go and meal planning and that sort of thing. But overall, if you've got either the bariatric portion plate and bowl, we've also got the bariatric portion mat. So that's quite transportable. It's just a thin silicone mat that wherever you go, you can set up a certain meal that meets your needs for protein, carbohydrates, that sort of thing as well. So it'll just help you to keep on track with portion sizes. I do hear a lot of people talking about portions, and I can eat, you know, 2 cups of food. I always talk about eating what you should eat, not eating what you can eat, because yes, there will be times, or there will be certainly room for more than half a cup or 1 cup of food. It's whether it's your portion size or not. So it's sticking to those portions and making sure that you are always, you know, on point with 50% protein basically, and the rest of the meal should be the other elements as well. So I'll move on to your questions because there's quite a few this week. There is some questions from the topic, which is the meal planning. Francis said, I never did an eating plan, but I keep finely chopped stir fry mix in the fridge and steak as my go-to as I eat it cooked or uncooked. Sometimes I add pear or mango and nuts to the mix. That's a great thing, is having, and don't get too hung up if you're eating the similar thing all the time, because essentially the diet will be meat and veg, some rice, pasta. Generally, we're looking for those complex carbohydrates in the fruit and vegetables. So it's a great way of getting prepared ahead of time. You grab your veggies, your stir fried is already ready, and just add the meat to it. So it's brilliant. So Maro also asks, last week you mentioned we should be eating even more protein than the current recommendation of 60 to 80 grams. This is a great question. How can we boost protein from food sources instead of adding protein powder when our capacity to fit food in is so limited? Are there any sources of protein like seeds or other small volume foods that we can add to a meal to boost protein that won't increase the volume of the meal too much? And that's a constant juggle, isn't it? Is, you know, if you're looking at, say, a 90 or 100 grams of protein a day, how do you fit that in? Generally, you'll find, and she just goes on to say that at the moment, the best I can do is make lunch or dinners 3/4 of a cup. So yeah, you will find that sometimes, sorry, I'm trying to stop sharing. Sometimes you'll find you have better days than others at capacity, fitting food in. But you're right, things like eggs are quite compact and high in protein, or you can just use egg whites. If you're making scrambled eggs, often I'll do 2 eggs full and 2 egg whites, and that way it's not adding as much bulk and kind of depth to your meal, but also adding more protein. other foods such as nuts and seeds are a great source of protein, and you can fit them in as a snack. So you'd be looking at, to get your 80 grams in, or even 100 grams, you're looking at 3 main meals of 20 to 30 grams of protein, which is still, it's almost 90 grams. So if you can fit in 100 grams of either meat, or if you're eating beans and rice and that sort of thing, you'll come up with a full capacity of protein in the meal. But things, I'll write a list and put it in the group. There's sneaky ways of adding just a little bit of protein, like hemp seeds. You could put those into a smoothie, or even if you're making a smoothie, you can blend nuts into that. So it's not taking up more space. It goes into the smoothie and gets integrated. So that's another way of doing that as well. Hemp seeds are beautiful. They're full of omegas, and they're really they're a good source of protein and a whole lot of other nutrients as well. Chia seeds, those sorts of things, they're not massive on protein, but they'll, if you added, you know, 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds to your smoothie, and then you added, you know, some nuts and seeds that you wouldn't have had during the day, you're probably looking at 20 grams extra of protein in there, with not too much in the bulky department. So you could try that kind of stuff. You can sprinkle protein powder if you do want, if you are finding trouble fitting in, you can use supplements, and this might be the case. Some people do have trouble fitting in enough actual volume of foods, and they do need supplementation. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that we do try and get everything from food first. So then you'd be looking at, you know, breakfast might be a smoothie, which is yogurt and fruit essentially, but you might put some chia, some hemp and some nuts in there and blend it up. And then you've added probably 20 grams of protein there if you put enough in. So those kind of things. It's a great question, and it's just things to play around with. I might extend upon that in the group, because I'm sure it's a question everybody's got. Thank you. Sharon asks, I need some ideas for evening snacks that will help me to not be hypoglycemic overnight. I'm suffering from late dumping syndrome and I'm really struggling. This is a sneaky one. And I would leave that with someone who's looking after you. What you'd be looking mostly at is making sure that your lunch is like a good meal. Generally, when blood sugars are dropping, I always look at the meal before the last meal. So if you're getting that hypoglycemic episode in the evening, I would look at maybe lunch isn't substantial enough and it's dropping off your blood glucose levels too quickly. It can be something that's going in at dinner time as well if it's too refined, but from that level of information, I can't really answer and safely give you guidance in this situation. But look at making sure that lunch is a good sized meal and it's a long burn. So it's like protein, you know, some good fats, like maybe drizzling some oil over your food, making sure that you've got no white, you know, potatoes or white pasta and bread at lunchtime, that sort of thing. Do the same with the dinner. So you're looking at overall, your diet would be really closely looking at those low glycemic index foods that will give you sustained and equal, kind of even out your blood sugar levels as well. There's other things like chromium, that sort of supplementation that you can do perhaps to level out blood glucose levels as well, but something that you'd need to do under guidance, because I don't have your whole story here. So these are just random ideas and something to take back to your team. But I think if you're talking about late dumping syndrome, you probably are under somebody's care. So stick with them, and but do look at how slow burn your foods are, rather than quick hits of, you know, high carbohydrate foods, and that'll help you out. So protein with a little bit of fat and some good carbs at every meal. Next question is AJ. Jacqui, I'm interested in protein requirements when you have muscle wastage. Do your protein needs increase, or is it just a matter of making sure you reach your targets? I asked the other week, blah, blah. And you might have, yes, you're probably right. I didn't get to cover it that week. So thank you for asking again. When you've got muscle wastage, it can generally be linked to A, not meeting your protein requirements, and B, not moving enough. For protein to do its job and lay down more muscle, there also needs to be activity that's overloading that muscle to make it go, oh, I need to get stronger, or, oh, I need more muscle tissue here because you're using me more often. So it is the combination. And when you've got muscle wastage, it can be either there's not enough in the diet and there's not enough movement, but it also can be that you're not absorbing it. You might be getting 80 to 90 grams a day, but nothing's happening with it. And that can be the gut. So it could be that you've got not enough acid to break down these proteins into amino acids and get them to be utilized in the way that they need to. The other thing that will stop protein absorption is alcohol. It'll inhibit 70% of your protein intake. And that's why you see, people who are regular drinkers, they have the big wet round belly and the barrel kind of body, and then have skinny arms and legs because they're not absorbing protein. They have muscle wastage in their legs and arms. So what I'm saying is, yes, your protein needs will be higher because you're trying to lay down more muscle, metabolically active muscle tissue, but to do that requires activity. So just increasing your protein will definitely be of benefit to you, but unless you're getting that protein to be utilized for production of more muscle, then it is going to be a slow process. So I would suggest, depending on your level of wastage, investigating some help from like an exercise physiologist or someone who's dealt with, bariatric needs, not just any personal trainer. And that, the gym where I go has an exercise physiologist on the floor now, which is fantastic. So I would look for someone who's got that angle and they know what you're dealing with as well, and that can give you specific exercise that's not going to be risky if you haven't exercised before, and will help you with that kind of laying down of protein as well. And yes, looking at how much protein you need in a day. Generally, like I've said, you'd be looking for 20 to 25 grams of protein at each meal. And if you're exercising, you would put in more protein in the middle of that as well. Thank you, Nicole. I'm 12 weeks tomorrow since surgery sleeve and finding it hard to eat. Everything tastes disgusting. Everything makes me feel sick. 12 weeks out. Finding it so hard, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I just can't. I'm finding popcorn is all I can keep down. I can't find anything I like to drink either. I used to be a big water drinker until I had surgery. If this is happening, I would suggest you go straight back to your team, and don't let that go on for too long, if at all. 12 weeks of not eating much and not enjoying food and feeling awful after food, we need to work out what's happening. And your team would be the best port of call for that. If this is going on, just really be aware that your water is really important and your multivitamins twice a day are crucial, because there's but there's very little other nutrition going in, and it's important that you don't end up in a really super deficient state. The B group can become a problem, that sort of thing, and it will make you feel very, very tired and can just make you feel demotivated and, and you're not enjoying it as it is. So I would recommend at your earliest convenience, you head back to your practitioner and let them know what's going on, and get them to have a look into what might be happening for you, and providing some solutions, of course. And check back in the group and let us know how you go, please, so we can also offer different input and just make sure that you're okay. Sharon asked a question. I'm really struggling at the moment. I've been told I have reactive hypoglycemia. I've just restarted seeing a dietitian, which is great, but I can't eat all the foods recommended, and I'm so confused and depressed and anxious as I feel awful most of the time. Any advice? And yes, I would say part of that would be because of your hypoglycemia. You'll feel up and down, and you'll feel, your brain won't be functioning as well as it could. So I don't know what your practitioner has suggested as far as the reactive hypoglycemia goes. Again, it's not something that I can really go too far into without having the full story. But again, like I said before, for the late dumping syndrome and that sort of stuff, you'd be just making sure that you're eating those, you know, substantial low glycemic index foods so that you're not getting that kind of up and down of the blood glucose levels. But once again, your dietitian is probably more expert in that area because they do much more of that, yeah, those kind of conditions as well. And overall, hypoglycemia is linked to low blood glucose, but it can be for a range of reasons. And as well, when you've done metabolic surgery, it could also be for a range of reasons as well. So it's very hard for me to comment. Julie asked a question. Does anyone else suffer with irregular bowel movement and constipation? I think half of the room does. I'm almost 2 years post-op, and since having my excess skin removed in October, this seems to be a problem, which is interesting. The dietitian suggested taking a fibre supplement, which I've been doing for 3 weeks now, but nothing has changed. It's interesting, it coincides with the surgery, and I wonder what kind of drugs they had you on, and if they had you on an antibiotic for a period of time to make sure there was no infection in the wounds and that sort of thing. And that can be an issue if your gut is not repopulated with good bacteria that are going to help your stools afterwards. That's what I would connect with just from guessing and reading the situation. I look at what might have happened during the surgery. Or as a result of the surgery. So I would look there to begin with, look at the gut health, bring in some fibre, which is not going to be an instant fix, because if there's a proliferation of these unhelpful bacteria that can cause the diarrhea or constipation or whatever, it takes a period of time for there to be a new group of bacteria that proliferate and as well and bring about a good change. So fibre is a great idea. You might even look at a probiotic, just bringing in some good, healthy new bacteria. Those microbes will help you, but they just grow on their own. You need fibre, and you need fibrous fruit and vegetables and plant foods, basically, to help those bacteria to form a new setup in your gut. And that will help things to change. Make sure you're drinking enough water. Have a look at the liver health, which is also helped by fibre. So irregular from that I'm getting, is it soft and 1 minute or too soft and then constipated the next? That irregular pattern where you've got, you know, diarrhea or soft stool one day and then you're constipated the next is a signal that there may be an intolerance. So I would look first at sorting out microbiome, boost the fibre. If nothing else is changing, I would have a look at eliminating things that might upset you, like glucose, like gluten and dairy. Experiment with that, remove them, then see what happens, and then put one back in and see what happens. And then if nothing happens, put the second one back in and see what the result is. You can test for all of this, or you can eliminate and then you can challenge your body. But generally, there are the things to look at. Is there's either the microbiome's been upset if there has been antibiotic use or drugs, that sort of thing. And then looking at, is there any intolerance to foods I'm eating now? And it can be that you've got intolerance to foods because your gut's unhappy. And once you take those irritants out and then fix up what's going on, it's likely you can introduce them again. It's not forever. And a lot of people go, oh my God, I've got to take gluten out and dairy forever. And it's not. It's just to give your body a rest and then do the work that it's going to take to build that system back up again and then try. And sometimes it is a no. And sometimes you just realize that you do feel better without it. So I hope that was helpful. But yes, it is a thing. This when you mess with your digestion, you're messing with your bowels and everything is involved. So it's looking at bringing about the best gut health you possibly can after bariatric surgery. Tony asked a question. Hi, group. I was wondering if anyone would have a copy of the list of medications we aren't allowed after our sleeves and bypass. Ibuprofen is the main player, and anything that's enteric coated. So there you go, Elevate, for those of you who are taking Elevate as your bariatric multivitamin. It's coated so that it's slow release, which will also mean that it's hard to know whether you're absorbing it or not. Not only is it for pregnant women, it's not meant for bariatric patients. So anything that's slow release or enteric coated also should not be opened. So some people are breaking open different drugs, and if it's something that should go into the system slowly, the minute you crack it open, it'll just start to dissolve and it'll ramp up the metabolism of it. So it's a great question. The main ones is ibuprofen and like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which are really hard on the tummy, and looking at the overuse of proton pump inhibitors for like Nexium and Somac and that sort of stuff. They're sorts of things that we really try to reserve when you absolutely need it. And we look to find the cause of the disruption to begin with, so that, yeah, you're not taking those for the longer term. But yeah, I'll do a little bit more research into drugs that should be either eliminated or minimized, but your team will also be able to help you with that as well. So let me go back to sharing. It's never easy, is it? I've got two screens, hang on. Here we go. So we want to share this screen and share, because it's time. Is that sharing? It doesn't look to me like it is. Oh yeah, it says I am, but I'm still big on the screen. Anyway, here's the prize. Who won this awesome prize? This week, the winners of Transformation Tuesday that I will announce in a moment are lucky. Oh, these new little thermal lunchbox kits are pretty brilliant. Cutlery in the top, and just a really handy size for you guys, particularly now the weather's starting to cool down a bit, which it actually is. I was a bit cold today. They've locked us up and turned on the winter weather as well. It's a bit sad. And so you win one of these. No strawberries for you, they're just decoration. And the new You kit, which is brilliant because we made it. So it's a book that is 5 things to stop doing, start doing, and to start thinking to prevent weight regain after weight loss surgery. And it's, I don't know how many pages it is, but it's a significant reading material. And also you get the BN multi-challenge calendar. So you'll be in line with all the different challenges we do throughout the year. Next month's challenge is finding alternatives to bread. And that'll be on the calendar. And then during the month in that calendar, there's things that'll keep that top of mind for you. So you're very lucky, and you're very lucky because you've worked really hard to become the winner of Transformation Tuesday. And I know Rachel's probably watching because I'm pretty sure she interacts with us every week in the group with the lives. So you have won this week, Rachel, and here's your, I'll just blow it up a bit. No, can't do that. And here's your story. Heaviest weight 110.4, pre-op 107.9, current weight 84.4, 26 kilos lost in 15 weeks. Oh my God. Feeling great, feeling the best feeling ever. For those that are due to have surgery, it's totally worth it. To those that are in the early stages, yes, it's hard, but it does get easier after about 6 weeks. So keep going. Isn't that nice? I've much more energy and actually spending time with the kids and being present in their lives rather than being in bed all the time. That's amazing. I'm looking for a job this year, and it's time for me to think about myself and my well-being. So it's not just weight loss, is it? It's life, it's kids and family and work and feeling like you know, contributing and, you know, empowering yourself. It's incredible. And there are your beautiful photos of before and after. Well, it's not after because it's not over yet. 26 kilos gone. Well done. And thank you, because I do acknowledge you're a big part of our group, and you've always got something nice to say. So I'm really happy to see you winning a prize too. Thank you for sharing. You may also share your full story as one of our BN Inspirers. And when we do connect with you regarding your prize, we will send out a link. And if you're interested in sharing the whole thing and inspiring others from our website, you're welcome to be a part of that too. So the second winner also of the beautiful kit and the insulated container is, drumroll, Tanya Galia Gatrell, who I also see in the group quite frequently as well. 13 months post-op, my goodness. Looking fit as a fiddle. Some of the results are incredible, and it is really life-changing, so good on you. And no story, but we've still got the visual, which speaks 1,000 words. So thank you all for joining us. It's 7:42, and I just am praying that they're going to let us out tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, it's been a bit boring, I must say. And I hope Easter goes well. We've also got some tips in our newsletter this week for getting through Easter without blowing the budget calorie-wise. And a great recipe, which will, yeah, not going to give away too much, but you'll see it in the news. So stick around in the group, and please keep sending me your questions. And also don't forget to listen to the podcast. Oh, this week I did a podcast with the girls from the Art of Decluttering, and God, it was interesting. And I did share in the group their podcast site today. I'll just stop sharing. And I did share in the group their podcast links today. I think I stopped sharing. Because what they say is it's not about the stuff, like being organized and being productive and procrastination and, you know, having a lot of mess around us and all that sort of stuff. It's not generally about things, it's about us and our emotional state. So I'll leave it there, but that one's coming up. I also did a podcast with one of the top surgeons for skin removal, Carmen Montanu. So that one's coming up, and I've been busy podcasting. Also talking with a few others. I'm not going to give it all away. So thanks for joining, and keep posting your questions in the group. Have a happy Easter. I hope it doesn't get cancelled. And I hope the Easter Bunny finds you. So have a wonderful week. Take care, guys.